Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hello there. Welcome back to Unbound. I'm Beth Curry. Today we're looking at my mom through yet another lens, this time through the eyes of my best friend Nate, who I've known now for almost 36 years. What he wrote about her completely kind of destroyed me, but in the best way. Nate's piece is called Pseudo Mom, and it's kind of about how my mom became a maternal figure to him without either of them making a really big deal about it, especially like in such a way that I didn't even really know about it. She showed up in small ways, all these tiny little ways that added up to something bigger than the sum of their parts. I'd say chapter 28 is about the families that we create beyond biology, about the people who make space for others without a whole hell of a lot of fanfare, about how my mom's instinct to care extended far beyond her own children, to anyone who needed belonging. And it's also about what remains when dementia takes so much, because even now, even with massive memory loss, that core quality of creating space for others, that's still there, for sure. So this is chapter 28 in the book. It's called Pseudo Mom. The weather had turned nicer, so I brought Mom outside to the courtyard at Willow Grove. She seems more settled outdoors sometimes, the fresh air and natural light having a calming effect, even on her most confused days. Today isn't one of her clearest, but there's a gentle contentment about her as she tilts her face toward the weak sunlight. I heard from Nate yesterday, I tell her, watching her face for any flicker of recognition. Her brow furrows slightly. Nate? I don't know who he is. My special friend, I prompt gently. I've known him over 35 years now. We met in high school when he moved from Australia. He needed to get a couple of extra credits so he could go to university here. She nods slowly, though I'm not entirely convinced the memory has surfaced. That's nice. Yes, I smile. He wrote some memories about you that I thought you might like to hear. Something shifts in her expression. Curiosity, perhaps, or the simple pleasure of knowing she figures in someone else's stories. He remembers me, but I told you I don't know who he is. I told everyone I don't know who he is. I even told Annabelle I don't know who he is. I laughed to myself. Sure, she may have said that to some people, but definitely not to Annabelle, one of her favorite nurses at Willow Grove. Of course he does, Mom. You are important to him. You are my mom and he loves me. I take out my phone where I've saved Nate's messages. He remembers how you'd drive him home sometimes when you came to pick me up from school. Do you remember that? She stares into the middle distance, searching. You waited for me after school? I was working at the church then? Not yet. I think you were between Oakville and the church at that point. Anyway, sometimes I'd be with my friends when you came to get me. Sally, I remember sometimes being there. Nate, he was the nice boy who lived up on... She pauses, reaching for the memory. Cavendish, I offer, not too far from our house on Coldstream. She nods more confidently now. That was not quite on our way. It's a small detail, but it warms me to hear her retrieve it. Mom and Dad were always practical that way. If someone needed a ride, even if it wasn't on the way, the answer was always yes. Nate remembers how you asked if we wanted to stop anywhere before you dropped him off, I continue. He said that small gesture stuck with him, how you always made sure people were okay, always thought of the little things that made them feel welcome. Mom smiles, and I can see her settling into the role that defined so much of her life, the caregiver, the one who noticed needs and met them without fanfare. You and Dad made him feel like he belonged even when he wasn't sure if he should be. I watch her carefully as I share that part, wondering if she recalls the reason for Nate's hesitation, why I kept him somewhat distant from my family. Her expression clouds momentarily. That's when you acted strange. She doesn't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. She's referring to what happened before Nate, the situation that ended so painfully, the trauma I carried silently for years. Even in her cognitive decline, some emotional landmarks remain fixed in her memory. I couldn't believe she even remembered his name. I move us gently past this difficult territory. Nate remembers the first Christmas he knew us. You gave him a cookie. Do you remember what kind? Her face brightens immediately. Pfeffernuss. The word comes without hesitation, startling in its clarity. German spice cookie, my mother's recipe. Did you know she was German? This is a detour I haven't expected. Nana wasn't German, and this wasn't her recipe, but I follow her lead. Yes, Nana was German. Did she teach you how to make those cookies? Mum nods, suddenly animated. Every Christmas, the kitchen would smell like cloves. I'd help roll them in powdered sugar while they were still warm, her hands moving in a gentle rolling motion, muscle memory intact despite the mental fog. Your grandmother was very particular. Not too much sugar, Kathy, she mimics, her voice taking on a slightly different cadence. For a moment, I glimpse the layers of maternal heritage. My definitely not German grandmother teaching my mother how to bake, more than likely pies, as Nana was known for those, who would later teach me, though I never quite mastered those particular cookies. Nate said yours were better than mine, I admit with a laugh. He said some things skip a generation. Mum laughs too, a genuine sound that echoes in the courtyard. These moments of authentic joy have become precious in their rarity. Do you remember when Nate's parents moved? I ask, trying another of his memories. You and Dad went over with baked goods. She shakes her head, this memory beyond retrieval. We did that for many people, she says instead. Dave always said food makes a house feel like home faster than anything. It strikes me that while this specific instance is gone, the pattern remains in her memory, the values and practices that defined their lives together. And when Nate lost his parents, I continue softly, you and Dad gave him a card. You wrote something that meant a lot to him. Her expression grows solemn. Both parents? 6 months apart, I confirm. You wrote him a beautiful message about grief and about being part of our family. Her eyes sadden. That is so young, she murmurs, and I realize her maternal instinct remains intact, transcending memory. You made a difference to him, Mom. He kept that card. She looks at me. We should have them for dinner, she says, momentarily lost in time. Dave could grill something. I smile gently. That would be nice, I say, not correcting her confusion about what's possible now. There's no point in reminding her of Dad's absence or her own circumstances in this moment. As Mum grows tired, I read her parts of Nate's written memories directly. She listens with a soft smile, occasionally nodding or making small sounds of recognition. When I reach the part about her Pfeffernusse being better than mine, she chuckles and pats my head consolingly. I could teach you again, she offers, a flash of her old self. Always ready to help, to share a skill, to bring someone along. I'd like that, Mum, I say, knowing it can't happen, but honoring the intention behind her offer. After I finish reading Nate's memories, we sit in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then, unprompted, Mum begins to speak. There were so many of your friends over the years, she says thoughtfully. Some I worried about, some I didn't, but they were all welcome. This unexpected clarity catches me off guard. You and Dad were always so good about that, I agree. Anyone I brought home, you made them feel comfortable. That's what homes are for, she says simply. Safe places. The phrase triggers another memory. Remember Kevin, the boy who played guitar? His parents were going through that terrible divorce, and he practically lived on our couch for a month. He needed somewhere quiet. Dave taught him to fix that old car. And what about Sasha, the exchange student from your French class? You invited her for Thanksgiving when you found out she was going to be alone in the dorms. She'd never had pumpkin pie, Mum recalls, surprising me with this precise detail. She helped me roll out the crust. None of these things happened, but we continue this way for a while. Me mentioning names from my past, her occasionally retrieving a detail, sometimes drawing a blank, sometimes creating a whole new story. True or not, what emerges is a portrait of our home as a haven, a place where my parents created space for anyone who needed it. Their friends, our friends, family, strangers, anyone. Even the ones who hurt you, Mum says suddenly, her gaze more focused than it's been all afternoon. We still had to be kind. That's what Jesus would do. The statement takes my breath away. She and Dad knew more about my pain than I realized at the time, how they balanced their protective instincts with their deep commitment to compassion. You never turned anyone away, I acknowledge softly. People are more than their worst mistakes, she says, with a clarity that seems to come from somewhere beyond her current cognitive state, and more than their worst moments. This wisdom, distilled from decades of counseling others through her church work, from raising children, from living a life dedicated to service, still shines through the dementia. The core of who she is remains. As the day cools, I know our time outside is coming to an end. Mom is tiring, her attention starting to drift. She says she's cold. Before we head back inside, she has one more moment of connection. "Nate," she says, smiling. "He was a nice boy." "Yes, Mom, he was. He still is." She nods, satisfied. I'm glad he remembers the cookies. Pseudo Mom by Nate Woods. I met Kathy not long after I met Beth. Back then, Beth used to hang around the high school until her mom got off work. And sometimes when Kathy came to pick her up, she'd give her friends a ride home too. I lived up on Cavendish, not too far from Coldstream, but Beth was nervous to ask if her mom would be cool with driving an older guy home. Turns out she had nothing to worry about. Kathy didn't even hesitate. She was sweet about it, totally unbothered. I remember her asking if we needed to stop anywhere before she dropped me off. We didn't, but the fact that she asked stuck with me. That was just her way, always making sure people were okay, always thinking of those little things that made you feel welcome. Beth and I got a lot closer over time, but I didn't spend much time with her family. She'd been through some stuff with a guy before, and she kept a lot to herself when it came to talking to her parents. So I stayed in the background, never really sure how much space I was supposed to take up. But Kathy had this way of making people feel included, without making it a big deal. I remember sitting on the deck one day eating pizza with her, Dave, Beth, and one of Beth's other friends. I wasn't sure how I fit in, but somehow I just did. I also remember that first Christmas in Canada. Kathy handed me this little spiced cookie covered in powdered sugar, something I'd never had before. "It's a pfeffernuss," she said with a smile, watching me take a bite. It was warm with spices, a little chewy, a little crisp, unlike anything I'd ever tasted. "It's a Christmas tradition I enjoy," she added, like she was letting me in on some long-held family secret. A couple years later, when my parents moved from Brant Hills to Shore Acres, Kathy and Dave showed up like they always did. Dave helped my dad with some boxes, and Kathy handed my mom a package of baked goods from a local bakery. A small thing, but I remember how much my mom appreciated it. And then, when I was 24, I lost both of my parents. It was the kind of grief that didn't make sense, something I couldn't wrap my head around. And in that space of loss, Kathy and Dave did what they always did. They showed up. They gave me a card, simple, small, but filled with something bigger than words. Kathy had written a message inside, and I kept that card because what she wrote mattered. "Dear Nate, my heart aches for you in this time of loss. Losing a mother is one of life's deepest sorrows, and I know there are no words that can truly take away the pain, but please know that you are not alone. Psalm 34:18 says, 'The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit.' I pray that you feel his presence in the quiet moments, in the memories that bring both tears and smiles, and in the love that surrounds you. If you ever need a place to be, a warm meal, or simply someone to listen, our door is always open to you. You are part of our family in more ways than you know. With love and prayers, Kathy and Dave." She didn't have to write that. She didn't have to say I was part of their family, but she did, because that's just who she was. Not my mom, not someone I saw every day, but a steady presence. A pseudo mom. You know, the kind you don't realize you need until you look back and see all the ways she was there for you. Beth and I have been through it all. Highs, lows, distance, time. Life pulled me all over the world, but somehow we never lost touch. Even when I moved to the US for work, we found ways to stay connected. No matter how much changed, we didn't. Best friends and beyond now. And then Kathy's diagnosis came. Beth needed help, support, someone more in the know to lean on, and naturally she leaned on me. And just as naturally, I opened my door, my phone, and my heart to Dave. Double D and I had some really good conversations, long talks Beth had no idea about. When she found out, she was shocked, maybe even a little weirded out. I don't think she realized how much her dad had been talking to me, especially about their health. I guess Kathy and Dave still thought of me as family, even after all those years. I think that's what family really is. It isn't always the people you see every day, but the ones who make space for you, no matter how far apart you are. And if I'm right, and that's true, then Kathy wasn't just a pseudo mom. She was my pseudo mom, and I was lucky to have her. And yeah, for the record, I did eventually tell Beth that her mom's pfeffernusse were better than the ones she tried to bake herself. Some things just skip a generation. It's funny because I'm pretty sure my mom's pfeffernusse were actually mass-produced. She never claimed to him she made them, so obviously my attempt wouldn't be as successful. Though I bet it would be now. My baking has definitely improved over the years. As we make our way back inside, I think about the strange gift of dementia, how it strips away so much, yet reveals essentials that busy, complicated life can obscure. Today, through the haze of memory loss, the core of who my mother is shone clearly. A woman who created space for others, recognized need and met it with simplicity and grace, who lived her faith through small daily acts of kindness. Nate saw it, so many others did too, and I, who sometimes took it for granted growing up, see it now with painful clarity, both through my own memories and through the reflections of those lives she touched. Mom may forget specific people, places, and events. She may lose track of time and circumstance, but she hasn't forgotten how to care, how to connect, how to make someone feel they matter. Even now, diminished by disease, she retains that essential quality that made our home a haven not just for her biological children, but for anyone who needed belonging. He was a nice boy, she said of Nate. This simple assessment, delivered with the same warmth she'd shown him decades earlier, encapsulates so much about her openness to others, her focus on the good in people, her ability to make someone feel accepted just as they are. These are the qualities that made her not just my mother, but a pseudo mom to so many others along the way. And these are the qualities that persist even as dementia claims so much. That night, I texted Nate. Told Mom about your memories today. She remembered the pfeffernusse and said he was a nice boy. She isn't wrong. His reply comes quickly. That's sweet. Give her a hug from me. And I will, knowing that even if she doesn't remember why, she'll accept it with the same open heart that made room for so many throughout her life. So let's chat. Being outside in the courtyard with Mom that day, mentioning Nate, and she didn't remember who he was, and I kind of had to explain it, and well, she thought that was sweet or whatever. But then when she told me that she told everyone that she doesn't know who he is, and she was very specific about Annabelle, I thought that was kind of funny because she created this whole narrative about telling people she doesn't know who Nate is. So it's confabulation again, but kind of hilarious, I think. Yeah, so Nate remembered things that my mom had completely forgotten, and I was able to share these memories with her, and just the little details, like even the things that I didn't remember and didn't know, and he kind of refreshed my memory on these things. But remembering driving us home and asking, if he needed to stop anywhere, and just even doing it, even though it wasn't really on the way home because the school was down here and we lived here in the middle, and then Nate was beyond that. And you know what? We were just lazy teenagers too, because our school was a mile from our house. We could have walked for sure. But yeah, going back to this somewhat complicated relationship with Nate, I've mentioned several times that season 3 is going to be kind of about my teenage years, and the trauma that I lived through. And Nate played a very, very big part in my life during that time. So you're going to learn a lot more about that in season 3. But Nate and my family, I kept him at a distance, because I had been through some shit with the guy before Nate, and even during Nate. It's crazy. It's a wild story. But I was traumatized, and I carried that silently for years, and I was super protective of my space. So Nate stayed in the background. He never really, he was good about it. I mean, I feel bad now. He almost seemed timid. I don't know, and he's not like that at all. He's loud and booming and proud and happy and friendly, and I don't know, he just kind of stood back, and I think he just was never really sure how much room that he was supposed to take up in our family dynamic, right? But my mom made him feel included, even though I was making him feel not. And he remembers sitting on our deck eating pizza. I don't remember the exact the time that he's talking about. I do remember a few times we did that. I mean, I remember one time when he had come over and I wanted him to leave. I think I cover it in my book for season 3. And I had to get my dad involved. And I was like, you have to make him leave, Dad. Like, there was yelling, and like I was just not nice. But you know, the times that he remembers fondly, like where we were sitting with friends and my parents and stuff, and it just felt normal. Yeah. I'm glad he remembers those. I'm glad he remembers the good times, because I've been doing a lot of writing and reflecting on the not so good times. Um, and the Pfeffernusse, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Pfeffernusse. I'm not 100% sure, but my mom always jokingly called them Pfeffernusses. So she was silly that way. So yeah, the first Christmas Nate knew us, and my mom gave him those cookies, and just watching how he liked those. And she when I mentioned that to her, and her face brightened immediately, and she proclaimed, "Per Pfeffernuses, not per, Pfeffernuses." Yeah, it's just funny, and just how she said that it was like her mom's recipe, and like just completely told me that her mother was German, and like, what? It's all lies. Nana wasn't German, and it wasn't her recipe, and I'm pretty sure my mom was getting those cookies at Costco. But she had just created this like whole ass narrative about her German mom and teaching her to bake them at Christmas and stuff. Hilarious. I think it's so funny. Confabulation, but it's beautiful confabulation. Just creating a story of maternal heritage. Their mom teaching me. Even though a lot of it's invented. My mom and my nana both taught me how to do a lot of cooking and baking and stuff like that. When I told her, Nate said that her cookies were better than mine, and she laughed and said that she could teach me again. Like, that's just so sweet. Yeah, and when his parents moved, and my parents went to the Brick Oven Bakery and took them some stuff, to make them feel home, even though, because like what my dad said, it's a small thing, like Nate said, but he remembers how much his mom appreciated it, right? But yeah, the just taking care of other people. And then, where Nate's story gets heavy, he lost his parents, one in April and one in September. And my parents showed up and told him that he still had family. And like he said, she didn't have to write that, and she didn't have to say that he was part of our family. He will always be part of my family, but that they were so welcoming as well. I think it's really sweet. And yeah, the part that Nate told me when he started talking to my dad, I was shocked, and I was weirded out, and I didn't realize how much my dad had been confiding in my best friend. Like, it's weird to me. I'm always very protective of my circles. I go into better detail about that, season 3. I'm very protective. I keep a lot of my circles kind of separated because of this kind of stuff. Like, I don't like my circles crossing over, and people I know talking to other people I know. I don't know why. Like, I'm totally fine with it. Like, it's weird. It's just a weird mental thing, a hurdle I kind of have to get over. But it does, it was compounded probably in the last 10 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, when I did bring people into the lives of family and friends I know, and those people hurt these people, and then I feel responsible for that. So that, yeah, like, there's a lot of protection there. And it's the fact that I keep circles separately, and I do have friends who don't understand that. And, they say some really awful things about me to other people about that and why I do that. And not even so much that I do that, but then they ask a lot of, I think, inappropriate questions to other, like, it's gossip. It's just gossip. That's all. And they should be talking to me. I'm rambling here about this though, but when I found out that he and my dad were talking, I guess it brought me a little bit of comfort too, because, he's got the knowledge. Nate has the knowledge to help my parents and bring them comfort and guidance and whatever, all the kind of stuff that I couldn't do. So I guess I'm grateful to Nate now for kind of looking out for them in ways that I didn't, or I was too self-absorbed to, or whatever. I don't know. I'm grateful that he was there for my dad when my dad needed that. Yeah, so I've just rambled so much I can't even keep a clear train of thought here now. Um, yeah, Mom talking about how, she was open to welcoming my friends, and even the ones who hurt me. And then she kind of talked about people. I love that she said people are more than their worst mistakes and more than their worst moments. And I don't know. I think that's beautiful. um, yeah. So what Nate's piece revealed that I really want you to understand: the families we create beyond biology matter just as much as the ones we're born into. My mom became a maternal figure to Nate through small, consistent acts of care, right? Like a ride home, or cookies, or baked goods for his parents, a card when they died, an open door policy that said, you belong here, He didn't really take advantage of that. He was quite an independent guy back then, always has been. None of it was dramatic, though, from my mom. None of those little things. It was never announced. She just made the space, and that space added up to something profound. Not my mom, Nate wrote. Not someone I saw every day, but a steady presence, a pseudo mom, the kind you don't realize you need until you look back and see all the ways she was there for you. And that's the other thing that fucking kills me. Like, even now with dementia, that quality persists. It really does. She wants to host people and have people, and she can't do that. She's living in a long-term care facility, but she doesn't realize that. And she hasn't forgotten how to care and how to connect and how to make someone feel like they matter, right? So yeah, he was a nice boy, she said about Nate. That just this simple assessment, and it's 100% true. He was a very nice boy. Delivered with the same warmth that she showed him decades ago, right? That's who she still is. And she made our home a haven for so many people. If you're going through this with someone you love, here's what I want you to hear. The qualities that made them who they are at their core, those often stay. Those don't go away. My mom's instinct to make space for other people and notice needs and meet them. And she never wanted to be celebrated or patted on the head for that or anything. She just wanted to make people feel like they belonged. That's still there. It's changed a little bit, yeah, but it's not gone. And for people who have had pseudo parents in your life, people who weren't yours by blood but showed up for you anyway, I hope you've told them what they meant to you. If they're gone, I hope you carry the memories, with gratitude. People like my mom who extend that maternal care beyond their own kids to anyone who needs it, like, they create ripples, I think, that go farther than they'll ever know or realize, right? Nate kept that card my mom sent him when his parents died. And it's been almost 30 years he's had that. Because like he said, those words mattered. That acknowledgement that he was part of our family, that mattered. He told me that over the years, he's looked at that card and he's read what my mom wrote in it. And, when he's needed it, it's helped him. Little gestures and consistent presence and making space. That's what love looks like, right? That's what family, whether it's chosen or biological, is built on. And that's what my mom gave to so many people, including my best friend of over 35 years. But someone she doesn't necessarily remember. She has since remembered him and then forgotten him again, of course. But he won't ever forget her. I know that. I guess that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening to Unbound. Support and contact info are in the show notes. Please join the Facebook group for discussion if you would like, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit author.bethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.